Hello and welcome to the Pittsburgh City Council budget hearings. My name is Deborah Gross and I chair the Committee on Intergovernmental and Education Affairs. For this hearing, we will hear updates from the sports and exhibition and stadium authorities. Before that, I'll ask our budget director, Peter McDevitt, to give a brief overview on the authorities. Mr. McDevitt.
Thank you, Councilwoman. The Sports and Exhibition Authority is the successor to the Public Auditorium Authority of Pittsburgh in Allegheny County. The name was changed in November of 1999 as the SEA began working with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the City of Pittsburgh, and Allegheny County to implement the Regional Destination Financing Plan, RDFP. The RDFP supported the construction of PNC Park, Heinz Field, and the expansion of the David L. Lawrence Convention Center, as well as the infrastructure improvements associated with these projects. SEA-owned facilities include the PPG Paints Arena, PNC Park, Acrisure Stadium, the David L. Lawrence Convention Center, the North Shore Riverfront Park, and the North Shore Parking Garage. The SEA consists of 7 members, 3 of whom are appointed by the city and 3 by the county. The 7th member is appointed by the city and county jointly. And Councilman Coghill serves on the board on behalf of council. And quickly, the Stadium Authority owned Three River Stadium and continues to own the land on which it sat. This land is located between Heinz Field and PNC Park. The Stadium Authority is responsible for the development of that land from surface parking to a mixed-use urban development. The Stadium Authority has a 5-member board. Each member is appointed by the mayor. The Sports and Exhibition Authority and Pittsburgh and Allegheny County and the Stadium Authority operate in cooperation with each other. Both have the same executive director and use the same staff.
Thank you, Mr. McDevitt. And now we'll ask the director to introduce yourself, including your title for the record.
Thank you. Aaron Waller, Executive Director for the Sports and Exhibition Authority, as well as Executive Director for the Stadium Authority. I'll also introduce Bridget Pascal, who's joining us. She is the CFO for the Sports and Exhibition Authority.
Does Ms. Pascal want to come up as well? Are you speaking? Okay, sure.
All right. Hi, how are you doing this afternoon? Okay. And just to get started, so there's a presentation in the packet in front of you with regard to the authorities, and wanted to briefly just describe, as was mentioned, the properties that the authorities actually own. Of course, the 3 sports venues, Acrisure Stadium, PNC Park, as well as PPG Paints Arena. And then one facility that folks tend not to mention often is the David L. Lawrence Convention Center, a huge prime business aspect for not just downtown, but all of Allegheny County, bringing events here to the region. And then we have our various parking facilities on both the North Shore as well as at the Convention Center, and then on the Lower Hill site. And so wanted to mention those activities from the standpoint our interaction with the city is twofold. One, making sure that we have prime cultural activities for the region, but also we're bringing in tax revenues, amusement tax, as well as parking tax into the region. And that's our main budgetary impact to the city. And to briefly just walk through some of the opportunities that we have. Amusement tax, we are planning in 2024 that the amusement tax will be slightly lower right now due to the number of concerts that are scheduled in the summer at our major facilities. Last year, we had 4 concerts at Acrisure Stadium, as well as 5 concerts at PNC Park. Right now on the calendar, there are 1 concert at each of those facilities. And so there will be an impact with regard to that. And so we are still rounding out those forecasts and working with teams for projection there as they solidify their contracts. Parking tax, we are still running behind the pre-COVID amounts. We still don't have the amount of daily parkers coming into the city that we have had in the past. In addition, our lease parking for monthly parkers is actually lower, also, I would say, due to that same impact. But we think we're going to be in the same range that we are coming in or came in from last year. In terms of 2022, we're at about 5.6 million, and we expect to beat that forecast in 23 and expect that to grow in 2024 as well. With regard to some of our other operations, the David L. Lawrence Convention Center, we are seeing more events coming into the convention center. We have some larger shows, trade shows, but those are being scheduled on a shorter time frame, so it's harder to predict further down the line our revenue in terms of those events. However, for 2024, we expect to see an uptick in the number of events, and the convention center operates at a small loss, and so we're looking to decrease that as we move into later years, trying to grow the bed of events and making sure that we can be cost neutral as much as possible with regard to that. Sports and Exhibition Authority, obviously we have some major initiatives coming up as we get nearer and nearer to the lease terms for PNC Park and Acrisure Stadium, and so we're expecting activity to start to pick up with regard to lease renegotiations. But as that occurs, we also will require more and more capital investment in terms of those facilities. And so the timing of that is going to be critical with regard to extending leases, but also tying that into our capital plans for the future. And then the Stadium Authority, the main activity on that side is as we have the old Three Rivers Stadium land. How are you doing? As we have the old Three Rivers Stadium land, we're finalizing the development there on the North Shore, and so we pretty much have one track left or one parcel left with regard to development there, and we'll be finalizing that over time here, and that will pretty much complete the work for the Stadium Authority. And so that North Shore development will be coming to a close, and obviously on the Lower Hill side, SEA responsibility, we're still working with the Penguins and their development team on that development and moving that forward. And outside of that, you know, we are working with the various authorities and agencies as we try to push more and more tourism into the city and the county. And we will make sure that everyone is aware and abreast of the activities as we move forward.
Thank you. Is that all?
That is all.
We have been joined by Councilwoman Barb Warwick, Councilwoman Erica Strasburger, Councilman Anthony Coghill. Do we have anyone online? Okay, great. Normally I go in the order that people arrived, but also I'd like to defer to the councilman who is on the board, as we often do. So Councilman Coghill, would you like to go first?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sure. Welcome, Aaron. I will tell you, folks, I was on the job search for this gentleman a couple of years ago. I think we made a great choice in you. And I'll just explain a couple little things that I think you bring to the table that we've not had these conversations before you arrived. And I know you were talking about the, you know, the Lower Hill and everything like that, but I want to just kind of go a little bit off course. First of all, in attracting new forms of revenue for the SEA, okay, I don't want to get into gaming right now. We've not gone down that road just quite yet.
Right.
Right? But I know whether it was ideas you garnered from working with the Washington, what are they now?
Commanders.
The Commanders, right. But these new fresh ideas for the city of Pittsburgh, I think are going to go a long way. And I like the enthusiasm that you bring to the table. But just simple things like, for instance, we found we are attracting conventions, not every weekend, but big conventions, and we're attracting thousands of people to our convention center. Hotel space is always an issue, but more so recently, we delved into this a little bit a couple weeks ago, is, for instance, when thousands of people come from all over the United States, and they're in the city of Pittsburgh, and they're here over the weekend, and Sunday, what we're realizing, and what we've realized, and I think much to your credit, was we've gotten a lot of feedback where, a lot of the restaurants in and around the North Shore are closed. So when people come from out of town, I think one of the, main ideas is they want to enjoy, our restaurants and bars and things of that nature. So we've formed an outreach team, or we're in the middle of forming an outreach team.
No, we've actually formed a stakeholder group.
Yes.
And it's a tourism development summit, and we're bringing stakeholders that will weigh in on how we can make sure that folks that come into the city enjoy themselves and they have access to amenities that make their stay pleasurable. And so not just for activities that happen at the convention center, but
Absolutely.
any stakeholder,
Well,
museums.
they're all one big thing.
Correct.
They really are. When people are visiting from all over the world to come here, and then we have to send them home, and they're like, well, we didn't really get to eat out because nothing was open in Pittsburgh.
Exactly.
So, and we can't dictate when a private restaurant or bar remains open, or when they don't. They do it when they feel it's most advantageous. But we can educate them, and we could tell them that, we're having 5,000 people in for the furries or whatever the convention may be, and and then they could open and close around our schedule, we hope. And of course, we hope that attracts the folks that are attending the convention to move into, or to keep these facilities open for them, because that's an important part of the equation. When they come here and they have no source of good restaurant or entertainment, they like to. I think everybody has a favorable impression of the city when they visit, but if they have nowhere to eat, that's a problem. So I appreciate you reaching out and forming this task force. What did you call it?
It's a tourism development summit, and it's the various stakeholders.
Yes.
So not just restaurants, but museums,
Right.
cultural district, the airport authority. So just different
Right.
folks involved, so that once a visitor hits the airport all the way through their stay, any activities that they may want to be involved in, we're trying to get that input in terms of making sure our communication locally is up to snuff.
Even
and
if it
people are
comes down
aware.
to putting it in our programming for the conventioners, that, this is where you can go to eat. This is where you can go to museums that are open, things of that nature. So I think that's a major step in the right direction. We have a first-class facility, as you know. Most people visit there are thrilled with the accommodations that they have. But we can't feed them also. We could feed them, of course. We have our own food and,
We welcome the
distribution there.
catering.
Yeah, sure. Well, we make good money on the
folks
food.
want to go
Right, absolutely. But it's that thinking outside the box and getting the stakeholders that are in and around the convention center, at least, where people can walk to, and saying, we need you open on Sunday. We need you open on Saturday, at least this weekend, because we have 5,000 people coming here. And, of course, we hope they venture down there and spend money, because if they don't, then they're not going to open next time. So I'd like to include that kind of like in our programming for the conventioners when they're looking at,
Right.
all the amenities, and say, okay, well, this restaurant's open, this one isn't, and, have a place for them to go. Other than that, we're looking at all different forms of revenues. Used to be that, the outlook, the vision was build a big stadium with as many seats as you can have. We fill those seats, and we get, our surcharge from that. However, it's really gone to a more condensed, smaller, like PNC parks around the nation. Correct? You want to speak to that at all?
Definitely.
And as to why? Yeah.
Yeah, the thought process and just the economics around sporting events now is lower attendance, and so you build facilities that are actually smaller, but you have more hospitality areas, and so more areas that you can activate even during a game or outside of a game. And so, hate to say it, Acroshore, PNC Park are now our competition with the convention center in terms of attracting non-game day events. And so these facilities are now being designed to enhance that revenue opportunity, and it impacts how the SEA has to function now, because the traditional lease terms are no longer as effective in terms of keeping up with the capital reserve requirements that we need if it's just based upon a ticket revenue coming to the SEA.
Right. And as it stands now, I should probably know this off by heart being the treasurer, but we run in a negative annually.
With regard to the convention center, that's correct. Yeah.
By how much? Do you know?
It's pre-pandemic, it was $3 million. During the pandemic, $5 million. We've gotten it back down to about $4 million now.
And we are always looking to increase revenues in any which way we can. And I think that you bring a lot to the table in that aspect, and your experiences outside of the city of Pittsburgh. And I'm confident that we're going to be in the positive, I think, in the next 10 years, we'll say, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely one where we're driving an approach in terms of looking at the different events we have, what the event types are, where we get the best margin on the particular event type, and pushing our sales team to generate more activity in those areas that bring the most money.
Right. And our sales team has been doing an incredible job. I don't know what we had was the, I want to say the Senior Olympics or Senior Games of some sort.
Senior Games, yeah.
Senior Games, yeah. It was incredible. I mean, there must have been, I don't know, how many people were in that?
There were a few thousand, yeah.
At least a few thousand,
yes.
Yeah. Playing pickleball all over the place, and they were having a great time. They really were. But again, they're asking me, what restaurant you recommend? And it's like a Sunday night, and I'm like, oh, I don't know. We can't even direct them to McDonald's downtown right now.
But we are aware of some of the local restaurants that stay open, and so we make that available to them, but they get inundated, and so right. More properties that are available to folks, the better.
Right, and so we're all aware the Downtown Partnership helps book that convention center. They are our principal player in that, right?
Downtown Partnership, Visit Pittsburgh, and their sales team are in lockstep with the convention center sales team in terms of booking the larger events.
Right, and I think our conventions certainly are up since the pandemic.
Yes.
But even if we went before the pandemic, I think when I say sales bookings are up.
Sales bookings are up, and I think it may have been before you came in, I was just saying in terms of like the sales cycle and the amount of spend per event is actually down. So it's like we're pushing more events, but the revenue per event is actually lower.
Sure. We added a rooftop plaza, or if you want to have a big wedding or event, it's gorgeous. Beautiful view. And we, of course, make an income from that. How has that been doing?
Oh, that's been a great revenue stream. I want to say it's like $1 million swing in terms of our number, top line number, based upon that. And that is really an April to October type setting. So. Yeah,
and we don't do that through January, February.
No.
But we have tents.
We take the tents down. Tents. We take the tents down during the winter. They
we don't want them blown away.
Freezing and snow.
They're expensive.
And,
I know.
They will come down if you leave them
correct,
up. Yeah.
Correct. But I'll tell you, since I've taken office here, it's been 6.5 years or so. I really enjoyed the time on the SEA. I really enjoy going back and forth with you, how we're going to attract more people, how can we make it a better stay for them, really is sales and marketing to the world. And it really is a window for the world to come in and evaluate Pittsburgh, and, who knows, it leads to companies moving here, it leads to people moving here, it leads to all that. But so we really are the gate, I feel, for people to come in and evaluate Pittsburgh, because they're thrown here because of their convention that we attracted.
That's right. And it's all about the experience. You want people to, as they're departing, to say, hey, absolutely, I want to come back for any other activity.
It's all about that. It really is. So I appreciate all the work you've done. I look forward to continuing our good work there. We have a long way to go, but we're headed in the right direction.
Looking forward to it.
Yep. So that's it for me, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coghill. Councilwoman Warwick.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I don't actually have too many questions, or just sort of one that comes to mind. With regard to the restaurants that are closed around the stadiums, with your tourism development summit, is Pittsburgh Regional Transit involved in that summit?
I believe they were invited as well, and I'll have to check the list. It's coming up in early December when we're having our first meeting.
Oh, great!
Yes,
because
yeah.
I mean, that seems like a real opportunity. If we talk about, because we have so many great business districts around, and if folk, downtown, these locations have quite a bit of transit service, so that's good, right?
Correct.
But if there were a way to provide information, which bus lines, where to get them, that kind of thing, then you really can create an environment where, I can get a hotel in Squirrel Hill or Lawrenceville, and I can go to the game, or I can go to the thing, and then I can come back and eat in the neighborhood, and that sort of spreads it around the whole city to all our business districts, which would be great.
And that is the goal. It's not just downtown. It's really about the region, the county, and making sure that we understand what is going on in the city, throughout the city, not just downtown, and throughout the county, so that if there's something of interest to folks, we can make them aware of it, and actually communicate how they can possibly get there if they don't use Lyft or Uber or something like that.
Right. And we've seen also, with the T on game day, that's wildly popular, right? So if there were a way to build out our transit countywide with also this in mind, I just always feel like, world-class cities have world-class transit, and this is part of that, right? This is all part of that equation. So,
and just making them aware of that the T is there.
Yeah.
Because there's a different setup here. You can walk right by a T stop and not realize it because you're not used to a building, depending on where you're from. You're used to just hitting some stairs or something. So
great. Yeah, I guess I don't really have any other questions. I appreciate. Oh well, I guess one. So when we talked about that the convention center runs in the red, is that accounted for in these tax revenue? Is that already accounted for in these numbers?
So it's not accounted for in these tax numbers. Hotel tax is what we utilize to overcome that, and that is not part of the city budget. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Strasburg. Oh, and let the record reflect that we've also been joined by Councilman Lavelle. Thank you. Councilman Strasburg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for joining us and for all that you do. I have two main questions. One is, thanks for hosting the press conference on the roof of the convention center for the Western PA Energy Consortium announcement. That was exciting, and it was a great venue for that. So I can attest that it's a great spot for any kind of event. With that in mind, I feel like I ask this every year, and I don't remember the answer to the question last year. Has there been discussion on the board around the Stadium Authority parking lots more than garages, of putting solar on top of those parking lots, one, to produce electricity that could feed into the consortium and also power whatever is necessary nearby, and two, to provide cover from the rain, the sun, you name it. Like it's a win-win situation, which obviously involves upfront cost, but it could have payback in the long term.
So the majority of our surface lots are part of real estate development option agreements. And so take the Lower Hill, for instance, or parts of the North Shore, we probably would not install because they would install permanent energy generating facilities just because they would have to be removed at some point as the development progressed. But potentially on the top levels of our parking garages, there is probably an opportunity. I know they did look at that in the past, and the economics just did not work out, but that's probably something we can consider as we see the price points of some of that infrastructure going down.
Yeah.
It may make sense now
to
consider
now
it.
More than ever, right? It's where the price is dropping for solar. Okay, that's great. Thanks for the reminder on the development agreements, I forget the precise name that you just mentioned, but yeah, I still think it's a great, if we can find a way to install it in a less permanent manner to be able to explore that, even just as a test case. I think, you know, we've seen it successful in smaller cases elsewhere, like the Frick Environmental Center and that sort of thing. It just provides that. It's for those who aren't even aware of it. It provides just, you know, shade from the elements and that sort of thing. So, yeah, if there's anything else there, or okay. The second thing is I was curious where we stood on the funding for what I understand to be a boat launch off the convention center, a kayak boat launch, and how that's coming along, if you can speak to that at all.
So I know I met with their executive director, and so we're not funding the boat launch.
Right.
I know they are currently in the development phase, and I want to say that they have not completed their plan yet. And as soon as they complete that plan, I believe that's when they're actually going to go out to the funding organizations and grant bodies to seek funding. But I believe this was earlier during the summer when I met with them, and they had not finalized their plan at that point.
Yeah, no, I think Venture Outdoors plan is, the plan of a plan is really great and feeds into, I think, in addition to, you know, what you're already thinking about around restaurants and, you know, concerts and shows, which we saw was like the huge comeback that we needed on the North Shore and downtown. Outdoor recreation, I think, could be a part of that and should be a part of what we're thinking about in this, you know, downtown recovery.
Correct, and we've continued to carve out the space where they actually want to install the launch, and, you know, we've drafted agreements and probably signed off on the agreement to actually provide them that space right there by the Riverfront Plaza. And so that's a done deal from our standpoint in terms of we have the space identified and allocated, and, you know, as their business plan comes to fruition, we'll be ready for implementation.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just, the more that we can also create this sort of like culture of, I mean, even just the sites that are identified on this map, a culture of like, there's a cool outdoorsy thing to do at every location, rappelling down the side of whatever building or what, I don't know, like you get the Boy Scouts of America convention here in a heartbeat with that kind of thing as well. So that's where my mind goes. I just wanted to kind of put that, that idea in for board members and for you to think about as you continue to rally around the other potentially, you know, markets that are outside of your control, but that you could influence in some way.
Definitely having access to the waterway, making sure that folks are recognizing the different natural amenities that we have here in Pittsburgh. The folks that come to the convention center, they appreciate it. They appreciate being able to walk outside and go down the water steps and get to the plaza and the water side. And so it's a selling point for us as well. And so having an amenity where they can actually get on a kayak, that's a home run for us.
Yeah, for sure. Great. All right, thank you. Appreciate your time and your effort.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Lavelle, any questions for SEA?
Didn't really. Well, the tourism development summit you mentioned, will that also be looking at the Lower Hill in any way?
So it's inclusive of all of the sites throughout the region, as we stated, but making sure that we do pay attention to items that the convention center and this SEA is heavily involved in, bringing that to the table as we further develop the Lower Hill.
Okay. Just as obviously, clearly, you know, there's a sort of a master plan for that site, but as post-pandemic, as office work has changed,
Yes.
I think that development will also have to be reconsidered somewhat. So
I'm sure those plans, you know, given the market conditions now, I'm sure that we're going to be looking at different development opportunities there. Yeah.
Thank you, Councilman. You are on record for the lowest number of minutes. I'm literally recording to make sure that people get equal amount of time. So if you're interested in the second round, let me know. So thank you, Director. I'll have some follow-up questions on some of the good questions that other members asked. And when you talked about the real estate development agreements for the surface lots, and show us the map of where, because it's always hard for me, and I assume the public as well, to remember that the Sports and Exhibitions Authorities owned the venues, but the Stadium Authority owns all the land under everything, just the parking lots and the old Three River Stadium land.
So the old Three River Stadium land is owned by the Stadium Authority. The old arena land, that's SEA. And so the Lower Hill option agreement
is through stadium.
SEA, not stadium. But on the North Shore, that option agreement is through the Stadium Authority.
So let's just stick with the surface lots first. As you've gone through and developed where on top of the land where the old Three River Stadium was. Mm-hmm. Did you keep the land?
No. So that option agreement, the Steelers and the Pirates actually purchased the land
under Acrisure. But you have other parcels. You referenced a parcel that you're still
between the venues. That's the Three River Stadium land. So they purchased that land, and so there's one lot right behind Stage AE that hasn't been taken down yet. And then currently, probably close in the next quarter or so, the plaza that's going before the Planning Commission right outside of PNC Park across the street, Mazeroski Way, right there, that plaza. And that is still under the Stadium Authority, but it's going to be going to closing, I would say.
So those development options included the option to purchase the land.
That was the option agreement was to purchase the land, correct.
All right, so I guess I wasn't following along as clearly.
And so the parcels were split up. The old land was split up into different parcels.
Sure.
And as development was ready, the developers would apply to take down the land and come before the Stadium Authority for approval.
Okay, and then the other, so what land is left that the Stadium Authority actually owns?
And so there's literally one parcel, and it's
just that one parcel?
Behind Stage AE, and it's currently a surface parking lot behind Stage AE.
Okay, so the yellow on my map is Stadium Authority parking lots and garages.
So the yellow, most of the 7A through 7E, that is land that we actually lease from the state DOT.
Oh my God, this really is very much more confusing than I thought.
Correct.
So maybe we're not going to I'm not going to get it straight right now. But it does feel like we should have it kind of more, I would like to understand it better. I don't know if other members do. So we can have a follow-up meeting, because I like this line of inquiry about how do we kind of look at new visions for these properties, whether that's solar on the roof or maybe it's residential, right? Where we didn't have residential in our long-term vision 20 years ago. So some cities are densifying by building on top of even garages, and not just the surface lots that already have the option agreements. The air rights above the parking garages are not under options.
So they are, and I will say that there is a residential property that is going up outside of PNC Park that is part of the option agreement.
That's exciting. Yeah. That's exciting. Okay, so yeah, it's something to reiterate. There are option agreements for the air rights above all parking garage structures?
So all of the property, except for, like I said, the one remaining parcel, are now all owned by the developer between development group with the Steelers and the Pirates.
Not just surface lots, but also structures.
Correct.
I didn't hear that the first time. Yep. Thanks for the clarification. And then I feel like I might have had another thought. I also would like to follow up. Maybe I don't need to have it on record for it's not really relevant to a budget discussion, but I'm also interested in the Tourism Development Summit. I think all of us have our ideas about how to get more visitors to town, kind of how to get people to move around. I feel like I've been in these discussions because I have actually for more than 20 years, even well before I was on council. So I sat on like the Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership Marketing Committee in my 30s, which was a long time ago, right? I don't even think it was like the 21st century yet. I think it was still in the 20th century. So we all have thoughts. So I would love to follow up with the Councilman Coghill and yourself. So I appreciate
definitely.
it. So we don't need to beleaguer. Does anyone need second round?
I do.
Okay, Councilman, go
Yeah,
ahead.
just briefly, I just wanted to add, outside of, others, things that we're attracting to the convention center is European soccer. People go wild for it. And we have our own soccer. We have our own soccer major league team here. But European soccer is a different level. And there will be people come from around the country to come see European soccer played at Acrisure Stadium, I'll say. So I don't know where those have gone. We don't have to get into that right now, but, I'll help. I love that stuff. I want to be in on those talks with you, and hopefully we can make some headway there.
Definitely. I know the Steelers are looking at bringing in some they call them friendlies, the soccer matches to Acrisure Stadium.
Right.
And you're right, they generate a lot of interest, and we
From
would
all
be
around the
pulling
world. Right.
folks from everywhere.
And to what you were saying, Councilwoman Gross, the Stadium Authority, from what I understand, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that land in between those two stadiums, they were responsible for. It is now done, except that one parcel. Therefore, the Stadium Authority, I'm not saying they don't play a role anymore, but we're looking at almost trying to combine Stadium Authority and the SCA board because their developments are done.
Yeah, I mean, once we get through the plaza development, there's going to be that one parcel left, and so we'll see what the timing is on them completing that.
Right. And one other thing I wanted to clarify, when I talk about, we're at a deficit every year, there's reasons for that. This building is ginormous, okay? Every expense, whether it's the roof, whether it's the lighting, you name it, astronomical amounts of money in just maintaining this building alone. And we generate so much income, of course, from the conventions that come there. But it's also, we do things like, for instance, we have a retail space along the convention center on Penn Avenue, I believe. Yeah,
that's right.
And we basically give it away because there was a group there, and I can't remember the name. Maybe you remember, Aaron.
So we have a couple of different spaces there, but we have a youth space there for a program, after school high school program, and then but we also are responsible for the spaces Bike to Berg. We also have can't remember the name of the dessert place. Cobbler World, and then we have Jimmy John's is a tenant as well.
That's right. But it's specifically the after-school program. We give it away. We probably could get out of the red if we wanted to in jacking prices up for them. And more recently, we renegotiated with Warhol Museum because they have a all-inclusive. I can't remember the technical names for it, but underneath our parking garage on.
Correct. They have another youth program, or they're running a youth program also in terms of fostering interest in the arts and making it available to all individuals, regardless of, economics or what have
And we
you.
provide a great space for them. They bring people in from all walks of life, and they're a nonprofit, so of course they're looking, to get at the least cost as they can, and we provide that. And I know we drive Doug and others crazy at times because we're like, the current market rate is this, and we're like, this is a benefit for the community. So I just wanted to be clear that the convention center, other than just attracting and trying to make money off conventions, we do our part for the community and the greater good of Pittsburgh in providing these spaces at low to next to nothing cost. So the picture is wide and vast as to what we do, but if we really wanted to rent that retail space out, we could probably get out of the red just doing that at the current market rate. So I just wanted people to know that we run in a deficit, but we also do good things for the community. You want to expand on that?
I think just at a high level, most convention centers run at a deficit.
Yeah.
That is the nature of the industry from that standpoint. In terms of the amenities and some of the facilities that we are able to provide to folks with regard to having them get started in their business and get off the ground, providing favorable rates until they can grow up, so to speak. Yep. I think that's part of our stewardship, part of our contribution.
Absolutely.
Councilman, I just also have to mention that none of us mentioned the Taylor Swift Eras Tour. And it doesn't seem like we should talk about the 2023 budget for the SCA without it. Director, do you want to just report for our budget record here, for our legislative record, the impact of Taylor Swift on the city of Pittsburgh?
So I can't speak to the overall impact in terms of some of the economic benefits outside of what we could tangibly see, but there were millions of dollars coming into the city with regard to the 2-day concert. And so that's key as well. 2-day concert, both sold out, both having folks stay.
I think each one was record attendance for your facility?
Correct.
Right.
So, and that's where I'm saying that, 24 may be a little lower than 23 due to...
And that's not counting the people that came just to be outside of the stadium. There was probably as many there as there were people inside the stadium.
I didn't go anywhere near it, I'm going to confess. I've stayed
Neither
as far
did
away
I.
as possible.
But
I stayed in my district.
I got an all-time high request for tickets for that.
Exactly.
Event. But no question, though, that brought in a lot of money, whether it be restaurants, hotels, across the board. It was just, if we can have that every year, the city would be in much better footing.
She carried the American economy all summer long.
She would, yes, she could.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
That's true. But we didn't have some of those concerts, so we were going to work on that. For the future, right?
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
That's a great commitment. I appreciate that. Okay, so if there are no more other questions, I'm going to ask SEA to leave the table, and we'll bring up the URA, and I'll hand it over to, while we're doing that transition, I'll hand it over to Mr. McDevitt to do our introduction for the URA.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thanks. The mission of the Urban Redevelopment Authority of Pittsburgh is the City of Pittsburgh Economic Development Agency, supporting the city's economic development goals, which are designed to create a city of inclusive opportunity for residents, stakeholders, and communities. The URA is committed to creating more housing that is affordable to the average Pittsburgher, encouraging more entrepreneurship and small business development, promoting inclusive growth and the quality job creation, expanding neighborhood and Main Street revitalization efforts, and developing a talented workforce that is equipped with the skills of the future. A quick overview: the URA includes 4 high-level functional units: central operations, development services, lending and investments, and business solutions. And Councilman Lavelle is council's representative on the URA board. In the city's operating budget, the URA shows up by they provide $522,000 from the authority in intergovernmental revenues to the city, and in OMB's operating budget there is $40,000 for administrative services for RACP awards. And in the capital budget, the URA has several projects: Bedford Dwellings Choice Neighborhoods, Home Investment Partnership Program, Housing Development, Neighborhood Initiatives Fund, the Small Business Development, and URA personnel. And quickly, I can go over the Housing Opportunity Fund as well. In 2015-16, the City of Pittsburgh assembled an affordable housing task force to better understand the affordable housing needs across the city. The task force recommended the city establish a housing trust fund, and as a response to the need for affordable housing, the Housing Opportunity Fund was created. HOF is overseen by the advisory board and a governing body. The HOF advisory board is composed of 17 Pittsburgh residents, Councilwoman Gross is a member of the advisory board. The city provided $10 million in 2022 to the Housing Opportunity Fund, and this amount increased to $12.5 million in 2023, and $12.5 million is budgeted annually for the fund.
Thank you, Director. And we are joined at the table by the staff at the URA, and I'll ask you first to introduce yourselves, but also how long is your presentation? We have to just kind of budget time, and I didn't ask you beforehand. I apologize.
I think the presentation runs about 20 minutes.
20 minutes? Are members good with that? Okay, appreciate it. All right, please go ahead and get started. You can introduce yourselves for the record, and we'll start the presentation.
Thank you. My name is Sushila Nimani Stanger. I'm the Executive Director of the URA.
David Geiger, Director of Government and Strategic Affairs at the URA.
Go ahead. Okay. So we will be as brief as we can. Today I'm joined by my colleague David Geiger, who's with me in person, and on the Zoom I'm with my colleagues James Reed, Kiana Wassler, Tom Link, Damar Carter, Josette Fitzgibbons, and Brandon Wilson. On behalf of the URA staff and its board of directors, we appreciate the opportunity to present our request for funding from the 2024 City of Pittsburgh budget. For the next 20 minutes, we'll provide additional context for our request. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with our work, thank you, Peter, for the overview. We are committed to building a prosperous and equitable economy for all of Pittsburgh. We do this by investing in and incentivizing the creation and preservation of affordable housing, promoting economic mobility and entrepreneurship through small business lending, and investing in development projects that realize community needs, improve the neighborhood's built environment, and provide economic opportunity to our residents. While our work is often very technical, we are inspired by a vision of a safe, welcoming, and thriving Pittsburgh. This year, we are requesting funding to supplement our work as we invest as largely a pass-through into transformational housing development and support communities as they undertake neighborhood-scale placemaking projects and seek development projects that provide growth and economic opportunity. As a side note, we were an early investor in the cobbler world, business that you talked about earlier. We are excited and honored to request funding to support transformational Bedford Dwellings Choice neighborhood projects. We also prioritize increasing the number of affordable rental units, as well as homeownership opportunities at affordable housing levels. We renew our commitment to Pittsburgh's communities and businesses by investing in development and business growth projects, by providing investments that empower communities and enhance surroundings through neighborhood-scale placemaking. Thank you so much for your time. We know your time is valuable. At this time, I'll turn it over to my colleague, James Reed.
Thank you, Director. Good afternoon. My name is James Reed, and I'm the Senior Manager of Development Finance here at the URA. I'm going to take us through our presentation. Thank you. Just want to briefly recap some of the work that we've been able to do in 2023. A lot of the work that the URA does is to, fill gaps where the private market is unable to deliver, often due to price constraints, or where the economics are particularly challenging. And we know that affordable housing is one of those consistent struggles, that Pittsburgh and the nation really faces. And so just want to share a couple of snapshots of the amount of affordable housing we have been able to invest in through, the URA and through our housing development, the affiliate, the PHDC. So what you can see is that to date in 2023, through quarter 3 of 2023, we have delivered or invested roughly $11 million in affordable housing development. And some of those categories where you can see the URA in particular has invested in is, preserving affordable housing for sale, where we've had roughly $900,000 of investment, newly affordable housing for rent, where we've had roughly $5 million of investment, newly affordable housing for sale, where we've had roughly $1.2 million of investment, home repairs that require affordability, roughly $1 million there, and preserved affordable housing for rent, and that's roughly $2.6 million there. And again, all of these units, that we're able to invest in are affordable at up to 80% AMI. And, one thing to note about the consumers and the residents that we're able to help, 82% of those who are receiving housing support are, in households that are either headed by minorities or women. Our work in housing is not just in sort of the built environment. We are also helping individuals through our work in housing crisis prevention and accessibility. So, we have helped folks in preventing housing crises, and we have also helped them in providing housing accessibility improvements. And we have also helped a large number of folks, roughly 1,000, in legal assistance for housing related matters. To pivot to how we help Main Streets move forward, there's a total of 49 projects that we have been working on in some way, shape, or form this year. And a lot of those touch commercial and mixed use, green space, recreation, and you can, see on this chart, we're approaching $700 million worth of total project costs in terms of the, work that we're able to support. So the gaps that the URA, can come in and fulfill really do leverage a significant amount of other investment. And lastly, just want to touch on, we do provide opportunities for small business growth through a variety of ways. And one in particular is our vacant property management program, which is Land Care, which does provide opportunities to a lot of small starts to really develop their capabilities to undertake, smaller contracts for land care and then roll those up into larger ones. And moving specifically to our small business lending, you can note that, so far we have served a total of 63 businesses through our commercial lending arm. And, that's roughly $5.2 million of investment into small business, leveraging roughly $13 million in other investment. And again, it's worth noting, the businesses that we support, 90% of them to date have been, through Q3 have been minority and women business enterprises. Just a quick recap on the ARPA dashboard that we provided. So, a significant amount of ARPA has been used for housing, and you can see that, we have assisted 40 individuals through the OWN PGH homeownership program with these dollars. In terms of business assistance outputs, we've helped about 70 businesses create 310 additional outdoor seating spaces through our outdoor dining program. And some other items worth noting for our ARPA outputs, roughly $2 million was dispersed to, kind of finalize the sale and dedication of 641 acres of park land. And a significant amount of ARPA dollars has also been used to upkeep infrastructure and been dispersed to help community organizations undertake their neighborhood placemaking projects. Just to share briefly some of the demographics on the Housing Opportunity Fund and the OWN PGH. I will just pause here, but it is worth noting that, there's significant diversity in terms of the race and ethnicity of the demographics that we serve to date. So, I think we really have a strong opportunity here to show that we work with all Pittsburghers and really look to be that resource that's available for all Pittsburghers. And, we can't do this without investing in our people. And this slide here is the 2023 URA administrative budget. And you can see, we rely on a variety of sources to fund our personnel and our operations, and really be able to drive and create opportunities for this city, and really demonstrate that Pittsburgh can reach its full potential. Pivoting to our request for the 2024 capital budget, I'm just going to focus on the bottom overall numbers. You can see that, overall, as outlined in the mayor's most recent budget, the URA is slated to receive slightly less than $11.5 million, and the majority of that is going to be channeled through for either Bedford Dwellings Choice Neighborhood or housing development. And then we do have our Neighborhood Initiatives Fund, which is specifically programming for enabling community organizations to undertake their neighborhood placemaking efforts. And then we have some small neighborhood business district support, as well as some additional funds for program delivery. This slide just wants to show, or just want to point out the evolution of our request over time. We really did want to focus on a wide array of potential ways to reinvest in the city of Pittsburgh and its residents and its businesses. And so, our request did initially include a bit of an additional amount towards the small business lending, as well as some additional monies related to land asset and property management activation, or property activation and land recycling and things of that nature. And over the evolution of the budget, the investment really does focus on housing and the Bedford Dwellings Neighborhood Choice Program. And lastly, just to show, we don't view our work in a vacuum. We believe that, the work that we undertake at the URA, trying to recycle properties, trying to invest in affordable housing, really allows other departments to undertake the work that they need. So we are complementary to, the other functions, and just really think that this approach is one, that our approach is one that allows, for significant impact with modest investment. So with that preamble, I will turn it over to my colleague Brandon Wilson, and he's going to give a couple of details on our request as it relates to Bedford Dwellings Choice Neighborhood.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brandon Wilson, and I'm a project manager in the URA's Development Services Department. The City of Pittsburgh was awarded a Choice Neighborhoods Implementation Grant by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in July 2023. This provided $50 million to replace the Bedford Dwellings housing development, which is the oldest public housing complex in Pittsburgh, as well as to transform the neighborhood into a neighborhood of choice. The URA is the neighborhood implementation entity for the grant and will focus on addressing neighborhood improvements to supplement the replacement of Bedford Dwellings. The City of Pittsburgh made a number of commitments to leverage the grant during our application process in 2022. The URA will utilize these funds to make the housing and neighborhood improvements that were described in the application. The URA is requesting $521,000 in CDBG money for an acquisition and rehabilitation program that will be marketed toward first-time homebuyers in the Choice neighborhood boundary of the Hill District. Viable housing units will be purchased and rehabbed by the Pittsburgh Housing and Development Corporation using Choice funds. We expect this project to create between 5 and 11 rehabilitated homeowner units. Next slide, please. The URA is requesting $5 million in CDBG for gap financing for Bedford Choice Phase 2. Phase 2 will be located on the vacant land on Francis Street. This phase features the largest number of replacement units, creating 180 new rental units on that site. Next slide, please. The URA is requesting $300,000 in PAYGO for street-level commercial activation on Center and Heron Avenues. The funds dedicated to Center Avenue will rehabilitate existing commercial space, and the funds dedicated to Heron Avenue will create new ground floor commercial development space as a component of Bedford Choice Phase 4. The URA anticipates assisting between 2 and 4 businesses with this funding. Last slide, please. Thank you. Finally, the URA is requesting $100,000 in CDBG for facade repair and housing renovation for existing homeowners within the Choice neighborhood. The URA anticipates repairing at least 5 facades with this particular fund.
Now I will turn it over to Kiana Wassler to talk through our ask as it relates to housing development.
Thank you, James. Good afternoon. I'm Kiana Wassler, Chief Housing Officer for the URA, here to discuss the URA's housing development budget request. Today, we are asking for city funds to support 3 of the 11 different housing programs available for consumers and developers across the city. The first request is for the Affordable For Sale Development Program. This program provides financial assistance to developers to create and preserve affordable for sale housing opportunities. Typically, in these projects, there is a gap in the total project cost for the rehabilitation of the home versus the price to sell the home to the affordable end buyer whose income is required to be at or below 80% of area median income. We are requesting $320,000 in CDBG funding, which will support the creation of approximately 3 affordable for sale opportunities. These CDBG funds will be one portion of the sources available to do this work through the program. The next request is for affordable rental development funds to be administered through the Rental Gap program. These funds will be a gap funding source to preserve existing affordable rental units that need to be updated, as well as to increase the number of affordable rental units available in the city by providing gap financing to developers. Real estate developers can only borrow so much debt for their projects, and delivering affordable units often creates a gap in their funding. These funds that we're requesting can be used for projects that are pursuing low-income housing tax credits or LIHTC and deals that are not LIHTC deals. LIHTC awards in the city of Pittsburgh have been increasing over the years, with 6 projects receiving a LIHTC award last year. The URA recently opened a pre-LIHTC funding round and received 15 applications for 2024 funding. While all of these projects will not receive LIHTC awards, those in Pittsburgh that do receive awards will be looking to the URA to help fill the gaps in their budgets. To that end, we are requesting $2.8 million in a combination of home and CDBG funding, which will create or preserve approximately 75 units. Projects that are currently in our pipeline include Carrick Senior Apartments, Smithfield Lofts in downtown, Hazelwood Green, the Bethel located in the Hill District, and Park Hills Drive located in East Hills. The next, the Home Accessibility Program for Independence, or HAPPY program, provides grants to senior or disabled residents of the city with an income at or below 120% of the area median income. This is for seniors or disabled residents that are looking to make accessibility improvements to their homes that will help them age in place and improve their quality of life. These funds can be used for exterior ramps, chair lifts, bathroom modifications, lowering cabinets and fixtures to be wheelchair accessible, visual doorbells, and other modifications. We are requesting $225,000 in PAYGO funds, which will support approximately 30 applicants. The URA, as mentioned before we started, the URA also receives $10 million per year from the city to administer the Housing Opportunity Fund. These funds are allocated across 8 different housing programs. The 2024 final draft allocation plan is presented on this slide. The allocation plan draft starts annually with public outreach and a survey where Pittsburgh residents can provide input on how the HOF funds should be allocated. The plan is then drafted based on the public input received and the needs in each program. The Housing Opportunity Fund Advisory Board then contemplates and votes on the draft plan, and then the URA board votes on the plan. Both of these steps were completed at each board's November meetings. This HOF and URA approved plan then moves to the city through city approvals and will be presented at council this week for standing committee meeting to further discuss the plan. The next slide comes from our 2022 HOF, or Housing Opportunity Fund, annual report. The Housing Opportunity Fund has a wide variety of programming for consumers and developers, and this is a representation of the impact that the programs are having throughout each council district in the city. And then lastly, the Affordable Housing Bond. The 2024 City of Pittsburgh budget request includes a $2.5 million line for the housing bond issuance. This is an effort to creatively raise capital for development projects in the wake of a strong and consistent demand for additional affordable housing opportunities, as well as rising construction costs and high interest rates that can delay or stop the completion of affordable housing. These funds will be used as a source in several of the URA's existing programs. And with that, I'll say thank you to the city for its continued support of the URA's housing developments.
Thank you. And now we'll turn it over to Josette Fitzgibbons to talk through the Neighborhood Initiatives Fund request.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Josette Fitzgibbons. I'm the manager of Business District Services for the URA. Today we're going to talk about the Neighborhood Initiatives Fund program, which started here at the URA in 2019. The program, as I'm sure you're all well aware, provides funding for community-based organizations and other nonprofits to implement catalytic place-making projects within our neighborhood commercial corridors. Just a note, we also provide technical assistance to organizations that are applying for our Neighborhood Initiative Fund grants to enable them to put together the best proposals that they can. We provide that technical assistance through Chatham Center for Women's Entrepreneurship and Neighborhood Allies. This year we are requesting $1.1 million. This is actually the same as we requested in 2023, but we are requesting all PAYGO funds this year and no CDBG funds. This will allow us more flexibility in the projects that we fund, as well as being able to help more neighborhoods throughout the city. Next slide, please. So this is just a look at the NIF outputs from 2019 through 2023. We've advanced 61 projects with more than $3.4 million of NIF funds awarded, and we've impacted 33 neighborhoods throughout the city. Thank you for letting us present this today.
Thank you, Josette. And now we'll move on to small business development, and we'll be joined by Tom Link.
Thanks so much, James. Thank you to City Council for listening to our request. My name is Tom Link. I'm the Chief Development Officer here at the URA to present this request. So this request is for money to support Neighborhood Business District, some more real estate development for small business expansion. The budget here, $550,000 in PAYGO money. The slide says 1 to 2 development projects. I'm hopeful that would be more like the 3, maybe 4 individual development projects that this money could support. The fact that it's PAYGO money, it does provide some flexibility across our whole city, so we would expect monies to be available to be sort of final gap fill, again, for neighborhood business district, infill, bricks and mortar, large Main Street development projects across the city. We're grateful for the support. I think, as everyone is aware, gaps in development are not getting smaller; in fact, they're getting much larger. This can be especially true in projects that were difficult to get done to begin with. So this money is extraordinarily important to help be as sort of a final gap fill where appropriate, to help us to reinvest in our business district and our main streets across the city of Pittsburgh. All the monies here, programmatically would run through programs such as the CDIF, Community Development Investment Fund, and others. Here at the URA would be approved, would require URA's board authorizations that would have sort of full public visibility through the URA's board process and staff underwriting and recommendation process. But we look forward to your continued support, and of course always thankful for the city's investment in our work. We're grateful for that. So again, thank you very much, and I'll recognizing we're short on time, I will mute and pause, and thank you very much again.
Thank you, Tom. And for our last slides, I'll turn it over to Damara Carter to talk through our ask for supporting our personnel.
Hello, I'm Damara Carter, the Chief Financial Officer at the URA. The URA has a total of 105 employees currently. The allocation for 2024 capital budget PAYGO administration cost is $575, which will roughly support about 8 URA staff. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you again for listening to our additional context on our request. And with that, I will yield the floor back to my colleagues in the chambers and to council. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll ask, do you have any extra comments before we go to questions?
No, nothing to add. Any questions you have, we're here.
Excellent. So I'd like to defer to the council person who serves on the board, so I'll start with Councilman Lavelle. For the record, we've been joined by Councilwoman Smith online. We're trying to get her back on. So if anyone from INP is listening, Councilwoman Smith is trying to get back online. We are joined online by Councilwoman Strasburger, and in chambers we have Councilwoman Warwick and Councilman Cogcull as well. Councilman Lavelle? Any questions, comments?
Yeah, I guess more of a comment than a question. I found one slide particularly interesting, which I don't have the page. I just tore it out. It's the one that says we deliver impact with a modest investment, and it points to the fact that only 7% of the budget is being allocated to the URA. The slide which is really, really interesting to me. The slide that doesn't accompany this, which I'd be curious to see, is the return on investment for the 7% that we actually send to the URA, because that return is going to be greater, far greater, probably in terms of our tax base and supporting residents within our community than any other one of these categories. Because if you believe, sort of like I do, that government's role and function in many ways is to sort of uplift, support the least of these. I believe the URA, through this very strong presentation, has proven they're doing that very effectively all throughout the city. So one, I thank you for you all's work, but I do think it'd be helpful at some point to be able to show council what the return on that investment actually is. Second, I'll simply say, unfortunately, there's been a trend to send less resources, less dollars to the URA to cover personnel, while simultaneously, and I'm guilty of this, asking URA personnel to do more and more. And so that's something that I think we have to take a very hard look at as well. And then lastly, I'll ask the question, I believe I know the answer, but I think it'll be beneficial for all of my colleagues. Currently, we have dispersed $9.86 million, close to $10 million in ARPA funding. We have currently under contract approximately $47 million, and we have close to $20 million that have not been allocated as of yet. Do you have any concerns about the remaining $19.67 million being allocated and dispersed?
So I'll just take a quick minute to update, and we did send an updated spreadsheet over to the council budget office just before the holiday, but just to update council members and the public, we currently have 61 million of the $72 million currently under executed agreements with the city at this point, and roughly 14% of the funds have been dispersed, which is about $10.2 million actually dispersed and out the door. I think what is oftentimes missing from this, and Councilman, as you're aware from sitting on the board, is sort of funds committed by URA board vote. You know, after we have funding under agreement, the board must commit it to a specific program or project or end user before we can go under contract with that end user and disperse the funds ultimately. And that number is at 54%, 38 million. I would say in our most recent board meeting, we put $7 million of ARPA funding under board commitment, which will quickly move to funding obligated and then dispersed. And that pace has picked up exponentially over the course of the year. So with that, you know, I am not concerned, but I'll turn it over to our executive director if she has any other comments.
I'm not concerned either. We have 10.5 million that we're currently actively working with city law to get under contract. So that's 10.5 of, you know, the overall over 70 million. So, yeah.
Thank you.
We're on our way.
Thank you. Just to put additional a lens on, colleagues have been concerned, and not just with the URA, but in general, about ensuring that we get all these dollars out of the door in a timely manner. But part of the reason, or one of the struggles, or at least on the URA side, has been the federal guidelines that have continually changed year after month after month, right? Like we would literally would think we have a program set up, we know how we can spend these dollars, and then months later we would have to change it because of federal guidelines. So that's one of the reasons it's taken so long to get these dollars out the door. The last thing I would just say, and this is really a citywide conversation, is the URA, and this goes to funding, but the URA, I believe, is going to have to play a more prominent role in the redevelopment of downtown Pittsburgh and ensuring that downtown does sort of become a 24-hour thriving center, and that's going to require more additional resources, and it's going to require additional subsidy. And whether that subsidy comes from the federal level, the state level, and or ourselves, we're going to have to take a hard look at the resources that we're sending there for the URA to play a role in creating a very sustainable downtown moving forward. And so I would just put that on the table. That's all, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. I'm going to go. I believe that we had Councilwoman. I just muted myself accidentally. I believe that we've had Councilwoman Warwick here first. I'll jump to Councilman Warwick.
Thanks. I don't have too much. This is really, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the comprehensive presentation with all the numbers, and, you know, it's really great. It makes it, you know, it's helpful for the public. It's super helpful for us, or for me, I should say. I guess just a couple small questions. And you, by the way, URA has been great to work with this past year. I just can't say enough good things, so I appreciate that. So yeah, so I was just sort of taking notes on the numbers of you know, units created and the own PGH and all of that. And thank you for including some of the demographic information. It's encouraging. I'm glad to see that. Of course, it's, you know, it's obviously frustrating, just sort of treading water with trying to keep, there's so much demand, right? So, but these numbers seem good to me. I mean, it's hard to build housing. I guess my one big question is of the, I guess not just of the rentals, but I'm sort of thinking of the gap financing. Do you have any numbers around this of the new units created, whether that be for ownership or rental? The number of bedrooms, because of course there's an issue of family housing versus, studio 1 bedrooms, and the need, according to the housing needs assessment, is really around the family housing.
Yes, council member, our housing staff definitely has that information on file. I see Kiana coming on to the screen here, Chief Wassler, sorry. And we can get that information over to you. A lot of the units are, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and then 3 bedroom units. And our board is always excited to see when we're getting those 3 bedroom units, family sized units online. Board members are very quick to note when projects are coming across the table with those family sized units, but we can get you a more in-depth report unless, Kiana, you have it at your fingertips right now.
I don't. I was going to echo your sentiments. So we can get you additional information on bedroom sizes.
Okay, great. And it sounds like you don't have any concerns about getting the rest of that ARPA money allocated and spent. Good.
Yeah, as Director Namani Stanger noted, we have $10.5 million that's sort of under review. It's been budgeted by council, but we don't have an existing contract in place with the city that the URA board can take further action on. I would say that the line items that comprise that $10.5 million are the new line items that were added during the re-budget process in August, as well as the Pittsburgh Land Bank, whose allocation was also affected by that re-budget. So that's sort of an explanation for the lagging timeline there.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, this is so comprehensive. I really don't have any other questions, but just please, obviously outreach is always, I just know how hard it is to do outreach, to get, you've got the money, you've got the programs, and then to get the people in the door to take advantage of them, and hold their hand through the process a lot of the time. So please, I'm happy to help, at least in my district, so please always let us know. We'll do as much publicizing as we can, and
yeah, I'll just add one thing. The OWN PGH program, funded with $15.6 million. We did change the guidelines just recently to allow for that funding to be accessed by additional potential homeowners, because we found that through some feedback and working with city residents that we weren't reaching enough. So we worked with city law and we were able to tweak the guidelines to allow for more flexibility.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, one feedback was that some divorced parents were not able to access it, and they had homeownership. They had a home with their previous spouse, and now they weren't allowed to access it. So we felt that tweak was important.
And and we had sort of talked earlier about the credit issue, just as far as the banks. Was there any headway? Maybe just because folks may have student debt, or they may have medical debt, or I don't know. There may be debt that's affecting their credit that isn't necessarily indicative of their inability to pay a mortgage.
I'm going to defer to Chief Wassler on that. I don't think that we were able to soften that requirement, but there is a credit training program that OWN PGH applicants can go through.
Or maybe just if an applicant is too low, just sort of an analysis of what that credit is. I don't know if that would be, I don't know how many times that actually happens, that someone has low credit for something that is kind of beyond their control, but.
Yeah, the URA funds are really a gap financing tool in the own PGH program, and the credit worthiness piece of the program is really the banks doing that underwriting to determine credit worthiness. They have sliding scales of loan products available to folks at different credit levels. If someone cannot fit within a credit score level, then we would we have asked the banks to encourage people to go out to a financial empowerment center through the city or some other home ownership training course so that they can get assistance on improving their credit or anything else that they would need to improve to become mortgage ready. So we are putting the word out to the public to maybe start at that step if they don't feel like if they're ready credit wise to go through a mortgage process. So we are definitely getting the word out to kind of make sure we don't have issues around credit worthiness.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Coghill, and then do we get Councilwoman Smith back, and we lost Councilwoman Strasburg?
She logged in.
Okay, she tried to log in, but she got kicked out, so we don't think she's there now. Thanks, Councilman Coghill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all for being here. First, I want to start with I love what we're doing up in Carrick. It's going to be transforming for Brownsville Road. I have no doubt about it. There are some issues that come up with the developer as to, closing the gap of $4 or $5 million, whether it be higher construction costs, things of that nature. They originally said, and I talked to Kyle about this, they originally, we were going to offer it to $250,000, and then there was some question as to whether we were going to honor that. And, they're counting pennies at this point, and they need to close this gap. And I think, I don't know who negotiated with whom, to be honest with you, but then she was under the impression, Laura, that, it was going to be, $750,000, not $250,000. I talked to Kyle. He assured me that we will close this gap and honor the $250,000 price that we gave her.
Councilman, I'm aware of the project, obviously, and we are super supportive of that project. I don't want to get into the details of that sort of negotiation, but I can confirm sort of what our chairman has expressed, which is that not just in the case of Berg Place in the Carrick project you're discussing, but with any 9% LIHTC that the city is awarded, the URA does everything it can to make sure that that project's gap closes and that it gets across the finish line. And so setting aside some of the logistics and details of that negotiation, that certainly is a commitment from the URA.
Yeah, and I'm comfortable with that, and I think Laura is comfortable with that as well. But I'll go one step further, and I told her I would ask, and I did ask Kyle, can we give it to him for $1?
We'll have to take a look at the cost that we have in. It's
dating back to like our firefighters having to go there and boarding the place up. I mean, what costs do we have? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, we would look at URA costs sunk into acquiring the property and holding the property. Again, I don't think that it makes sense in almost any case to give land away for $1, even for affordable housing. However, the URA ensures that there is financial assistance and support provided on the financing end of any deal to help cover the gap on the cost side of the deal, even if part of that cost is being driven by a land acquisition price pegged to our actual costs for acquiring and stabilizing.
Right. I will say, of all projects that I've seen in and out of other districts and mine, never have I had unanimous support from a neighborhood as we do for affordable senior care. And, never do we have a better piece of property. It's just ideal. So when I asked to give it away for $1, we do a lot of things. The URA does a lot of investments that we really don't get a return on the money, right? And I understand trying to cover our costs, but this is an overwhelmingly supportive project. And just let it be known on the record that I'm asking for I'm asking for $1. If it could be done, great. We could help them close that gap. I understand that, it's not good practice just to give property away, but in this case, when this place has been sitting there for 20 plus years, vacant, abandoned, costing us money by sending our paramedics and our firefighters there on a weekly basis almost because kids are running in and out, they're starting fires. So I would just encourage any which way, David, we can do it, okay? I asked for that, but if we can provide gap funding in another form, that's great. I'm just making sure that they meet their, costs that they have to, I think they're about $4 or $5 million short right now. So anything we can do. If you tell me there's other ways, great. I was just looking at the price of the building, to be honest with you, so to save some immediate money there. So. Okay, well, I thank you for that. That's, again, we're looking forward to it. Carrick is looking forward to it. The whole entire Brownsville corridor is looking forward to this. This is going to transform everything up there, I do believe. Okay, let me talk about the bond for a little bit. Okay, I know it has not gone to market yet, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Interest rates, when we first approved this, were extremely high, I felt, and not good time to be going to market. Have we waited to not go to market because the interest rates, because I know they've come down a little bit since then, and I think they'll continue to go down over the next months. So what is the process of thinking there as to when we take this to market?
We are still in our due diligence phase with the city in terms of the structure of the bond, and we actually have a briefing that Council President Cale Smith asked for tomorrow. But we haven't gone to the market yet. We're still in our due diligence phase. And we are hopeful that the interest rates have gone down.
Well, they have.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying let's run the market. I voted against it, to be honest with you. But you remember?
I was wondering how we were going to fill the gap for Berg Place, and I thought the bond would be a good source.
Well, there you go, Cecilia. Now you're talking. So we'll give the building away for $1, and we'll cover those costs there then, right?
So just so you know, the acquisition price that we do collect for the properties that we convey on, we use half of those go into lease land fund, and the lease land fund goes toward our property maintenance, so we can keep our properties safe and not contribute to blight. And,
right. Well, talk to me about what the bond, and I see here increased utilization of low-income housing tax credits. I see non-LIHTC, community-driven development preservation, funds to support redevelopment efforts on nonprofit development partners. So talk to me about where the money that we're going to be financing goes to. These three categories and only?
You're talking about the bond issuance?
The bond, yes.
Yeah, the production and preservation of affordable housing throughout the city, for sale and rental.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
And we receive more LIHTCs than we ever received from the state.
Is that right? Yeah.
And we need to fill all of those gaps. Right. Yeah.
Here's how I can't sleep at night. We're taking on a $62.5 million loan. We don't have the ability to negotiate with it anymore. The city council doesn't. Obviously, Councilman Lavelle does. He's on the board. But we're given raw numbers like it could be anywhere between $20 and $45 million. Tell me we're not going to take $20 million. Do we have a cap? Do we have an idea as to what we will accept and what we will approve for the loan? How much interest are we willing to pay is what I'm asking.
Councilman, I think we can talk more about this during the briefing, as we mentioned during
It is tomorrow.
During many conversations leading up to the bond. There's only so much we can say publicly without affecting pricing, and I think venturing down this road would start to affect pricing. We will also, to your question, as required by the legislation passed by council, within 90 days of the bond being priced, deliver a more detailed sort of spending plan to council to let you all know.
So when we take it to market, when we get our offers, Will you report to council on that? Will we know what's going on?
Yeah, that's part of the process, is we'll come back to council.
Even though we don't have anything to do with approving it or taking it, you'll keep us well informed as to.
You're a key investor in it.
Right,
So
right.
we come back.
Okay. Okay, well, listen, thanks for the work. Again, I have complete confidence in what we're doing up on Brownsville Road. I really do. And you have your hands in so many pots, and I understand the budget that you have to work with. It's a huge budget, huge overhaul. And just let me end with this. I know that we're always trying to create affordable housing and ways to do that, and, we're helping in each way. And Councilwoman Gross and I talked about this many times. And I know that we're not interested in purchasing and operating and owning our own properties, correct?
That's correct.
So if we have a 35-year deal, say with Berg Place or any affordable housing unit, so we do secure it for 35 years, and that's well past any of our time here. But we're not securing it forever. And by owning and operating our own, I would say, we can secure that forever. And I understand it's a whole new game that you're getting into, and property managers and everything that goes along with that. I just feel for our money, and as much money as we spend, it would be nice to actually own something that we can control for all time. Anybody kick that around at the URA? Is there
without
any interest in that?
without a dedicated funding stream for property maintenance, I think it's largely irresponsible for us to be a property owner long term. Right. I mean, we try to keep up our properties the best we can, but many of them need to have new roofs, and it worries me that cold weather comes and here we are, not able to put new roofs on properties that we own and we should be responsible for.
Yeah, I understand.
So,
I understand the expenses with that. I do.
Yeah.
But we also have a great amount of expenses with the way we're doing things as well.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
It's hard to compare the two. But
yeah.
Okay. Hey, thanks for being here.
Thank
Look
you.
forward to working with you on this Berg Place deal and getting that to fruition.
Be a good project.
Pushing it through, getting it to where we need it to be. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any other council members who were able to get back online? For the record, we had Councilman Wilson for a few minutes and lost him as well. So apologies. Council people, if you're out there and can't get in, IMP, you might want to check and see if there are other council people in waiting rooms. Thank you. So I do have one item that we had a post agenda on this year and isn't really highlighted in the packet of accomplishments for 2023, which was the Child Care Fund. I think it's kind of, it's folded into some of the small business items. Is there anyone in the panel who can speak to kind of what was the share of small business? Because it's such an important topic. It was an important topic even before the pandemic. And it was really highlighted, I think, for all of us and for the public, just how dire the situation is in terms of total number of seats, workforce, small businesses, the neighborhood kind of serving micro businesses that are in the child care sector. And council gave the URA a little bit of money to do work, which you leveraged with a great deal of funding from PNC. Is there someone
Yes,
there?
Catherine Murray is on, and she just came on, just turned her camera on.
Hi, Councilmember Gross. It's a privilege to talk to you again and to highlight our childcare efforts. So I know that earlier in the presentation, we gave our small business lending to date through Q3. And I'm happy to report that out of the 63 businesses that we assisted with small business loans through Q3, 14 of those received a childcare forgivable loan called a CRIB loan, a childcare reinvesting in business, for a total of $256,000. In addition, 3 businesses that are childcare related also took out traditional term loans with us. These businesses are either starting up or need larger capital besides the $20K that we have in the CRIB program. So in general, we are continuing to reach out and support childcare businesses throughout the city, and are happy to report that we have such a high number of businesses in our lending portfolio that are childcare related.
Thank you, Catherine. If you don't mind following up, I was trying to take notes. How many got the traditional loans?
3.
3 additional loans. I'm actually really excited to see that. Well, you would assume at first blush that getting a grant is better than getting a loan. I've long held, and I've said it before at this table, that especially when we're talking about like a supportive, nurturing environment like the URA, having a relationship with your loan officer actually helps you as an operator grow your business acumen, your business capacity, especially in sectors where there's a passion for the topic, right? You know kids, or you know senior care, or you know after school programming. You don't necessarily know the business side, right? So you may not be as strong with your accounts receivable or your marketing, and having that relationship with the loan officer can really help transfer that knowledge and grow the capacity. And in our goal, especially with the child care, with all of the small business impact, but especially with child care, is to make sure, again, that we grow the workforce, we grow capacity in the operators, and we grow those number of seats that are available for our residents' kids, because we know that's really a burden on families. And that a large number of these are minority and women-owned businesses that are located, again, deep in neighborhoods, especially the micro businesses, where they're neighborhood-serving businesses that are providing jobs to residents. So thank you for touching on that. And I'm just like doing the real highlights from the post agenda, where we already presented all that, which is for the public you can find on our legislative record and Legistar if you search under post agendas. So thank you. I do, right, the very next page after small business impact is the American Rescue Plan Act. And I know several council members have asked, but just to kind of drill down, we talked about how some of the cash has really already is out the door and in the hands of the people that are, providing the impact. But then it's 47 million, but we think that's updated to slightly over 50 million. That is labeled here as agreement executed, but awaiting distribution. And so I think council members have asked, or you're confident that those are going to kind of get out the door. But is there anything you need from us? Is there any obstacle? Is all 50 million of that going to get out the door by the end of 2024, like in the next 12 months? And kind of how does it get out the door?
Sure. So the agreements that we have executed with the city, have clauses and language in there about a spring 2024 date, which is when we'll be working with city law, OMB, to look at what is currently under contract and what is a path forward for getting funds that are not under contract already under contract by the end of 2024. The end of 2024 date is a under contract or funding obligated deadline, and then there are 2 additional years to actually spend money that is under contract. So, we're fairly confident that we will get this money under contract by the end of 2024 with a clear plan to have it spent within the additional 2 years. And we think a significant amount of the funding will be spent by the end of 2024.
So there's 2 different things. It says agreement executed, but that's not the same thing as under contract?
That's
for the kind of middle blue color?
Agreement executed in that middle blue bar that you're looking at on the presentation we just gave is referring to agreements with the city executed, city and URA.
But not the recipient.
But not, an end user under contract, which is sort of the step that would come afterwards. And that $47 million is accurate through the end of Q3. But as I mentioned previously, our pace has picked up exponentially, and that number, as we sit here today, is currently $61 million executed between the city and the URA. And the remaining $10.5 million that is not executed are the 3 new line items that were placed in the budget back in August of this year, as well as the land bank agreement, which allocation was also affected by the rebudget.
Okay, I think I've got a little bit more clear. So there's really nothing City Council can do to help you get the $61 million that's currently already under agreement with the city to be executable contracts with the end recipients. That's all on you.
Correct. From an administrative standpoint, that's with the URA and administrative staff in the mayor's office, LMB, city law. But I do want to highlight what we spoke about earlier, and I would go back to Councilmember Warwick's question about sort of engagement and outreach as it relates to these programs. We are trying to do everything we can to get the word out about things like PGH. We're holding office hours at Carnegie Library branches across the city. I've been reaching out to council members as those are being scheduled in their districts so we can help cross promote, understanding that your networks in your districts are much more expansive than ours. So,
I'm just going to clarify again. So the 61 million that is under contract with the city, it's all signed and sealed, delivered between the city and the URA. Some of that is actually program money. And so getting it under contract, actually still, there's no one really that money is assigned for. It's just a bucket that it's assigned for, like on PGH.
Yeah, that's correct. Some of the line items here are for more capital projects and specific projects. Others are programmatic in nature and fund a whole pipeline of end users, whether that's additional projects or residents, like in the case of PGH. Got it.
Okay, so we can definitely follow up with, I think, all council members so that we can be clear on where we actually need the residents to be participating in these programs. Which ones?
We can send you an PGH flyer and you can share it with your constituents because many of them may qualify for PGH.
Is that the only program in the $61 million bucket?
As far as consumer programs,
yeah, as far as consumer programs are related. There's a handful of other programmatic line items. A lot of those we actually are either fully committed or close to committed, but in terms of a consumer residential program, PGH really stands out there.
What about the business ones? Some of them are business programs, correct?
Yeah, business programming, I would say we are getting fairly close to committed between the URA and end users.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to make a kind of general statement that I'll let you respond to, and because I'm not going to drill into the very specific kind of disagreements we have about some of the projects in my district. But I think early in the presentation, I think Director, or maybe Mr. Reed, I'm not sure who said it, said the URA basically exists to fill the gap where the market conditions are challenging. And I have contended many times at this table and elsewhere that we have two sets of market conditions that are challenging. Because for years and years, it was just blight and abandonment and disinvestment. And most of our programs are oriented to those problems. But today, we have a really bifurcated real estate market in the city. And the other half, and here I am, you can't tell on camera, but I'm looking right at Councilman LaValle, he's looking right at me. I'm sorry. And that the other market extreme is hyperinvestment, gentrification, and displacement. And that those are both broken markets. And it is our role, I agree with you, but it's our rightful role that no one else is going to do it for us. We have to do it, right? As local government to step in and moderate those market extremes. And that we really have to do both. And it really takes new thinking and programming to make sure that we're also moderating the broken market extreme of hyperinvestment, displacement, and gentrification, because it's not helping us. If you allow that concentrated wealth, which I know council members have talked about many times at this table, you are actually facilitating concentrated poverty, right? Just by sift sharing, right? You can't allow the market to be broken on either end. So I'll make that broad comment, which again, I have debated and presented. That comes from a speech that I made in 2019 at a panel hosted by state representative in Inamorado to the House State House Legislative Policy Committee. And I still believe it. And I still think that we need to double down on that. So it is at both ends of market extreme that we should have programs for if we're building an inclusive, equitable city. I'll let you comment, but I'll just leave it at that top level myself.
I can hop in real quick and then hand it over to Executive Director Namani Stenger for her thoughts. But yeah, I think I was actually at that policy committee hearing in 2019 with you. A former executive director also offered, testimony and thoughts on community and neighborhood development. I think that we certainly at the URA agree with you that there are multiple different markets, both in Pittsburgh. We see them nationally as well. They each come with their own set of challenges. And yeah, our residents should not be forced to choose between futures of, blight and disinvestment or, intense market pressures and displacement and gentrification. And I don't think you'd get an argument out of anybody at the URA that our residents shouldn't be facing either of those options. And I think we are seriously looking at solutions to both of those areas, as well as in between markets and other incredibly complex deals and neighborhoods where those lines aren't necessarily as clear as they often can be in certain neighborhoods across the city. And the only other thought that I would have is, well, I appreciate the city of Pittsburgh, both council and the mayor's office, doing what you said, which is looking at this problem, investing in it, and trying to solve it, and are currently some of the most active at doing so. We actually can't do it by ourselves. We need the state and the federal government to come in and assist us, partner with us on a number of these things that we're doing, because the problems that you're describing are so much larger than just a local market dynamic creates, and therefore the solutions and investments needed have to go beyond the city of Pittsburgh's capital and operating budget.
David, that's so well said. I would just add that from a market perspective, some of the interventions in stronger markets include unlocking affordable housing options, which we are collectively all in. I mean, 80% of our budget, and like approximately 80% of our budget looks to advance affordable housing throughout the city. But affordable housing is not an economic development strategy, right? And so the other ways that we can influence and leverage public interest in the commercial market, and you've seen this, Councilwoman Gross, with the produce terminal. So one way we've been able to, and under your leadership, really, in unlocking, well, there's a requirement by the private developer for the produce terminal to allow for small and local businesses to occupy space in the produce terminal. And that goal has been exceeded. And the only way that we had that leverage was through the tax increment financing tool. And so there are ways locally that we can influence how we approach commercial development, and it's sadly it's through investment. It's not through much else. So we are looking for other ways to round out our economic development strategy when 80% of our funding is directed toward affordable housing, and it is through tools like TIF, TRID, potential tax abatements, which we're looking at for downtown.
We can agree to disagree on the produce terminal and the way it turned out. We won't have to fight. We won't fight today. I'll be happy to fight off camera with you. But I just thought maybe our councilman on the board had another round. I'll just offer.
No, I'm gonna resist.
We can all resist then. That's probably wise. We are closing, I don't think we have anything more on the budgetary impact here, and we don't have any other council members joining us. So I'm going to, thank you, Director. Our next budget hearing tomorrow afternoon at 1:30, and we will be joined by PWSA and Alcazan. And with that, since I have several members, I'll ask for a motion to recess. So moved.